You know it better than I do.
All right, thank you, Nate. All right, so the Say It Loud Film Festival is happening on April 16th, which is next Saturday from noon to 10 p.m. at nighttime. And we have partnered up with the No Boundaries Coalition. So I got to tell you the address real quick. It's 1947 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is where the Jubilee Arts Center is located. So we've partnered up with the No Boundaries Coalition, and the No Boundaries Coalition hosts an annual block party right there where we're going to be having the film festival.
Okay.
This is the 9th annual Boundary Block Party, and they are providing shuttle buses to take people to the voting booths because the Maryland primaries open on that same April 16th date that we're having the film festival and the block party. So we're going to be partnering up and promoting each other, and there's going to be these shuttle buses taking people to the voting booths to go vote, and we're going to have live music, live poetry, live dancing from a local high school, and then the films start at 7 p.m. at nighttime. So that's basically what's going on for the Say It Loud Film Festival in West Baltimore.
Tune into the Artist Exchange every Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., every Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m.
Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange Live.
The Artist Exchange. The Artist Exchange.
The Artist Exchange.
Starts now.
Welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio. I am your host, Hollywood. Just want to say how y'all doing out there. You know what I'm saying? What's going on in the world? You know, that beautiful world out there of United States and every other country there is out there. But let's just keep start off by saying let's just keep all the states that's actually been hit with these hurricanes and everything, because they're talking about in Puerto Rico, you know, they're still pretty much without power. You know, some places that have power, but also let's just also reach out to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, how we can help is, like, you know, pretty much donate what you can, because there's a lot of people like in the poverty spots in Puerto Rico that are really down, and you know, and they're getting sick, and people are dying every day. So we definitely got to be mindful of that. You know, we're blessed to be where we are today, but you know, there's other people that's less fortunate. And also, I missed the Ravens game. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I saw that everyone was taking a knee, and a lot of people are getting upset about it because they saying, "Oh, why would you do that for the national anthem and whatnot?" But I believe a lot of people was taking a knee because of police brutality and the racial injustice that's going on. It's not necessarily probably the anthem, but I'm just saying it's that America needs to change in so many ways, or the government or the high officials, because it seems as though that, like, as the days and days and days go past, it's just like it's just getting worse and worse and worse. But we, the people in America, can make things a lot better by actually making change, and change is good, you know. Yeah, change is always good. But just some side notes, like what's been going on with me, updates. Let's see. I was filming a movie all week, most of the week, and it's called Trouble Brews in AA Meetings. And just for me actually being on set, this is actually like my very first full-fledged comedy, being a part of the production team and whatnot. It was actually funny, you know. You actually get to meet a lot of characters, a lot of new people, and directors and producers and all of that. And it's just like sometimes, like, I'm just thankful that I'm actually able to be in a position where I can actually just be into what I love. It's what I love doing. And because I don't remember at one point in time that I really felt like I was going to quit. And like, you know what, man, this is not for me, because I was going through so much, you know, losing my wife, she passing away. And then, you know, just family members and my aunt. And then it was just a big weight on my shoulders. And I just felt like, you know what, man, I don't feel like doing none of this no more. I don't want to act. I don't want to do none of this. But I'm like this. What's the point? What's the point in starting if you're not going to finish, right? So I figured, you know, I stuck it out, you know, and I realized that we're going to go through things in life, and it's going to make us actually feel that way. It's going to make us feel like as though that we want to quit and we just want to just throw in the towel. But during that time, you know, that's when we really, you know, we have to look in within ourselves and, you know, get our strength, because without it and without our faith, how far can we go? You know, because what faith availeth much. You feel me? And you can move mountains with faith. Like, not like literally like move a mountain, but I know what you get the gist. But you know, just saying, for people who feel as though, anybody out there feel as though like, you know, you feel like giving up, or you feel as though that, you know, you can't make it or you can't go on, just know that, you know, stay strong and that you can actually make it. You know what I'm saying? You can actually be an encouragement, and your life could actually be a testimony for someone else that's actually going through the same thing you're going through. And I'm not technically preaching, just giving them some words of encouragement, you know, because a lot of people feel like giving up sometimes, and I feel as though that, you know, just want to let them know that they're not the only ones that's out there that's going through something, and just let them know if they stick strong or hold on to it, you know, everything's going to work out in the end.
Right.
Because everything in this world is not easy, you know.
Well,
So
I think part of that problem is the last 2 generations have been taught to keep stuff at home, and then when you keep it at home, there's nobody at home that's gonna accept it or talk through it, because nobody wants to admit that something's wrong.
Right.
Because people take your problems personal. I'm sorry, people. I spilled water, so I'm trying to clean it and talk at the same time. But that's something that I try to help people with, like, just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't need your advice; they just need somebody physically to talk to. We're gonna be having this, and that's why people are going to social media and Facebook and stuff like that to air out their problems and their grievances, because they have nobody to actually talk to.
right.
And that's a big problem.
Right, and that's how I was back in the day. Like, I really didn't, kind of somewhat still to this day, somewhat, but not really. Like, a lot of people, when you don't have a lot of people to talk to, like, you do hold a lot of stuff in, and it does actually take a toll on you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, because, like, you know, I have so much I want to get out, but who can I trust, or who can I really, you know, let how I feel out? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's how I felt, as though, like, I felt as though it was better to talk to a stranger than someone I actually knew, because, like, who they gonna go back and tell? They probably can go back and tell anybody, but I'm just saying. But I felt as though it was like it'd be a better way to just express to them, because I don't got to worry about, you know, someone taking favoritism or someone doing this. Like, hey, they can speak from their side.
And that's something that we have to begin to work with. Specifically in this artist community, we take on so many different emotions, and then we're meeting people with emotions, and, you know, we tend to try to be the strong individual, and you gotta find an outlet that's not just something creative, but really, if it takes you going to get help or finding a spiritual leader or whatever that may look like for you, but get it out. You know, sometimes people are asking you what's wrong, and we don't want to tell people, because once we tell people, then everybody know our business.
Right.
You know, but you have to seek out those individuals and trust, you know, in the people that you choose, and just have that open communication with people.
Right.
Because when something happens, that's when people regret not taking the time. And on the other side, the people who are seeing people go through stuff, stop. You know, I know everybody's going through something. Like, we all have issues, so you don't want to take on anybody else's problem. But sometimes just listening to somebody is all that is necessary. And that's all that pretty much is needed, because some people just want to talk. And I learned that. I'm thankful I learned that early. You know, just to be a good ear and just listening to them. Like, because there was so many people that used to come to me and just talk to me about their problems. And I'm like, yo, thinking inside my head, why are you coming to me? I don't want to hear this, man. But then I think about it, like, you know. Right, it wouldn't have came to me. It wouldn't have been. I wouldn't have been here, or this wouldn't have been ordained in a way. Like, everybody has created this idea of what family and friends and community is, and everybody has eliminated the fact that as you are given, you are required to give.
Right.
And you have to do that. We have family members watching people go through stuff. And I understand when somebody's going through the same thing and they're not learning a lesson. But there are other situations where somebody is suffering in silence.
Yes.
Somebody is going through something and they're reaching out to you. And all it takes is just maybe going out to lunch or something, or, just finding time. We find time to do everything everybody else outside of our loved ones need us to do.
Right.
And we don't take the time. And family is strained nowadays and estranged. And we have to really figure out how to get back to a point where we love each other. Like, it's very strange that people don't feel the need to love on their family.
And it's crazy. That's what's missing in this world. There's so much hate going on that is blocking out the love. But I feel like I get happy when someone comes to me. Hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I just got something. I'm like, cool. I don't mind. Like I'm at that point. Like I don't mind listening. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind giving that shoulder if you need someone. Like if you need to lean on or something like that. Because I remember there was a point in time in my life when I tried to go to people. I tried to go to a group of people and just explain to them how I was feeling and whatnot. And they laugh at me. And I was like,
but you gotta. That's not the group of people you need. Right,
and that's what I did. I changed my environment. But at the same time, like how I felt, I wouldn't want nobody else to feel that way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I started. I'm gonna open my heart up, and just go ahead and just like listen and see like what if I can, or if advice come to me to give to this person, that's what I'll do. I'm not gonna just go ahead and just jump into it. So I enjoy listening to people, and actually just being there to actually help and pretty much help. That's my thing I love helping.
And just bringing it back around to the arts are there to do that. So if you don't have that space, you don't have that opportunity, join some art program or some community theater, or take some classes and try to funnel or find a constructive way to get out what's going on with you and figure that out for yourself. Like, choose those things. If you need help in finding those places, art is always therapy, and it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to a shrink or a therapist or a counselor. But art is a way of funneling out and just cleaning out those things that are within you. We had an author on yesterday. Writing is definitely a way of channeling those emotions and just seeing them. When you see stuff on paper, old-fashioned, write it on a piece of paper. It normally helps you. It's normally the first step, because once that toxic, whatever that is, hurt, pain, anger, frustration, it's outside of your mind, you no longer have control over it.
Right.
And it no longer has control over you, and it's not just running around in your mind and taking up space and, pushing out anything that could be possible. So we have to figure out how to, find those ways. And another thing that I've noticed that is kind of akin to this issue is people if I don't agree with who you are or what you do, or we don't see eye to eye on things, that's not a dividing factor. It's not you on this side or me on this side. People are going to disagree. Right. And you have to be able to get up from that disagreement and still love that person and respect that person the same way. Right. And I'm noticing that is also a thing that is a barrier that keeps people from reaching out to each other and holding on to each other. It's stupid.
Right.
It's really stupid.
And just to piggyback off what you said as far as the writing, like when you say going back to the arts, and I do feel as though that writing is a great outlet, because at one point in time, that's all I could do was just write, and then the more I write, the more I just felt better. So I just kept writing. And normally how I do it is I'll just keep writing until I just can't write no more. Like nothing else comes to me, nothing else coming out. So that's when I close the book.
There's ways to do it. Some people have learned how to go to the gym and get out of their aggression. Some people, do community theater. Some people paint. Some people write. Whatever your outlet is, do that thing, and show somebody else how to do it. Tell somebody else, what it was. For me, making jewelry, is definitely one of those outlets, because I do everything else creative. It's kind of hard to, find something that I do for a living to be, creative, because sometimes you don't want to mix those things,
right,
in a workplace environment. But I found jewelry to be that, because I don't always have to be selling jewelry.
Right.
I definitely, take time. What was this, Monday? I pretty much stayed in the house all day Monday, and I didn't do anything else. No, actually it was Tuesday. I stayed in the house all day Tuesday, and you know, I created, you know, got some housework done. I got some emails, but I found time to be creative in my own self, because we don't always have people, and people aren't as communal as they used to be. So we really definitely have to focus on how we communicate with people, and when we see people going through stuff, stop turning a blind eye, because if anything, you know, God forbid, happens to that person, then we're boo-hooing, then we're crying, then we're wondering what happened, what could I have done. You could have just sit there and had a conversation with that
and the whole situation could have changed, and and it's sad because there's so many situations people like that, and sometimes it's sad that people have to wait, like say, like you said, they had that opportunity to speak to him, but they didn't, and they passed away. And it's normally the person at the funeral that's crying the loudest or the most. It's like, because like, yo, you know, what was going on, you know? Yeah. It's like,
so you just got to figure out how that works for you, and figure out what you need to, you know, do to get through that. But what is it? That time we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BigExposedRadio.com.
Do yourself a favor and listen to this hilarious flashback on Charm City Direct Radio Show.
You know me. I eat like this all the time. Do I gain any weight? No, at all. You can have my belly right now. I'm giving away body parts. Somebody said they need a butt. Somebody said they need a butt.
I can use a little extra tissue there.
I can pop it. Right now.
He out here giving out butt cheek donations.
Hey everybody, it's your girl, the magical glow getter herself, Anissa Maureen, co-host of the Charm City Direct Radio Show. Catch me and the rest of my team every Saturday, 5 to 7 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
Thank you for tuning in to BeExposedRadio.com. Sit back, relax, and listen to this flashback of the Artist Exchange Radio Show.
Every time.
You just have to really
have faith and believe.
Right, and it's everything isn't going to be cotton candy and clouds all the time, but you have to, even in the midst of a storm, you have to speak light over a situation and life over a situation. You cannot always go into every situation. Sometimes it gets above you, and sometimes you got to speak over yourself and bring yourself back to focus, and because you already there. But in most cases, we take ourselves there. We walk ourselves over that dark threshold, because it's easy for us. It's easy for us to be victimized and to be downtrodden and in that dark place when things happen to us. But you got to figure out how to successfully move into that. And a lot of you may say, what does this have to do with being an artist? It has a lot to do with being an artist, because I don't want to just talk about ticket sales. I want you to be a healthy, long-lasting artist in your own right, a long-lasting entrepreneur. And sometimes we try to mask what's going on with us with putting ourselves to work. So I'm gonna put myself deeper into this project, and it was times where I didn't want to be a part of things. I didn't want to be, because I wasn't whole. I wasn't happy with where I was at, with things that was going on in my life, and I didn't care how successful a play was. Like I just didn't care, but all I knew was to work. So I would put myself deeper into work, and I didn't address what was going on, and sometimes that made the situation worse, because once this play or this project is over, I still gotta face that. So I was sweeping it under the rug and not thinking about it and not focusing on it, and all the while it's growing and festering and getting worse.
Right.
And I'm over here just trying to be an artist, but you gotta heal from within, and it's an ongoing process, and you may never get to your destination, but the journey itself is worth fighting for.
Right.
You know, even if you don't make it, you know, or you transition before you get there, but
like I don't have that if factor. It's like, you know, when we make it,
right,
we're going to make it. It's like I don't know. Some people's like I'm not knocking what you saying if, but my version of if is like it's not. It's like it's doubt, and I try not to have if in there, because if you have if, then that means it's a but.
The Artist Exchange Radio Show every Friday 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Saturday 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Real artist, real talk, real live on BeExposedRadio.com.
Ladies, are you in need of the best quality hair extensions, a cute outfit, or that perfect pair of shades? Pink Ice Products can cover you from head to toe, from flawless weaves to apparel. Visit us online at pinkiceproducts.bigcartel.com. We're located at 3000 Old Alabama Road, 119-303, Alpharetta, Georgia. Or give us a call at 470-488-6484. Come on in and check out Pink Ice Products today.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com, the home of Talk Lately with Monty, every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Check out what you missed on Be Exposed Radio.
Listen to Elizabeth Warren talking about Black lives and Black life.
Police are not occupying armies. This is America, not a war zone. I speak today with full knowledge that I have not personally experienced and can never truly understand the fear, the oppression, and the pain that confronts African Americans every day.
Don't you just want to kill yourself? I mean, not from what she was saying, but from the music that was playing in the background. I just want to, gosh, but every word she said was prolific, and it did not come from what is now becoming mainstream as white privilege. She has a sensibility about her, and the way she speaks about different things that has, from the first time I saw her, I can't remember what state she's in. I think she's in like North Carolina or something like that, somewhere I'm not going. That some kind of sensibility about her that makes me like her for president. But she's not running. We have this old guy that looks like he should be on the popcorn box. Then we have Martin O'Malley. Fine. We'll settle if we must. Hillary, who I like, but she just has to fight against all this controversy, and that's the hard part of it all. Then we have Huckabee. I could have swore he died, like in one of those books, like a fairy tale book. Trump, we're gonna get to you in a moment. Meet with all these black folk in one room, and they just fell for it. Like, he must have been giving out $100 bills behind that.
Check out the Talk Lately show every Tuesday nights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here on Be
everybody,
Exposed
check
Radio.
out what you missed on the one and only Be Inspired Radio Show.
I'm just thankful this year I've dealt with, you know, some growing pains, and I've overcome some things, and I've also, you know, accomplished some things in the process. I've learned some things.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio. I am your host, Hollywood, and we have our main host, Nate, and we have our two lovely special guests. Y'all can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, the way I like to introduce myself is by reading something. There we go. Well, oh, well, it's storytelling time. My name is Mama Linda.
Mama Linda, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is David Fakunle. How y'all doing? Pleasure to be here today. What to say? I call myself a disruptor of the system, and I do that in a number of different ways.
Powerful introduction.
You know, whether it's through academia, whether it's in government, whether it's in art, in culture, whatever elevates our people is what I aim to accomplish. So I'll introduce myself that way today.
They are both musicians, griots, storytellers, and members of the Baltimore art scene in their own right. I met them both at the Peel Center a few weeks ago. They were doing an open house tour of many of the skyscrapers downtown, and I got to stumble upon these two individuals. Were you doing, you were part of an exhibit there, or?
Yes, we were, yeah.
Yes.
So just kind of discussing the history of the Peel Museum, all the things that have occurred in that space for something that was neglected for a long time until recently. It's a plethora of history, and Mama Linda and I just had the opportunity to just talk about one aspect of that history, with it being at the time the only colored school in Baltimore. So that is an important space when it comes to black education in this city, and we just highlighted that during that evening.
Many people don't realize the history that is there, that's connected to our black culture.
Yes.
And how significant that is, and how connected, like it's right across from City Hall.
That's right.
And like nothing has been done to kind of highlight that.
That's right.
Or to kind of spotlight it and share it with people. So I'm glad that Dr. Proctor and individuals like that have begun to now invite us into that space and really showcase that history and such. So tell me a little bit about what you do, Mama Linda.
I am a storyteller. I'm a word spreader. Like Brother David, I am a community archivist, you know, so it's an activist, archivist. And I've been doing what I've been doing for over really about 60 years now, starting as a child growing up in Tennessee. I'm from near the Smoky Mountains, the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. And I was raised on storytelling, pinto beans, and cornbread.
Okay. Did you bring some with you?
Honey, if you had told me, I would have. I definitely would have, because I love pinto beans and cornbread with a little onion on it.
The next time.
Next time I definitely will.
Cornbread too.
That's right, and some fried apples too.
I haven't eaten today, just so you know. Just so you know. But continue.
So anyway, I was raised on storytelling. I learned about storytelling, you know, through my family. My father taught me how to bear witness to injustice. Just use your ears and your eyes and remember. My mother was a great public speaker and a great teacher, and from her I learned how to really tell the story. And my granddaddy and my Uncle Buster were great storytellers, so I go on and on. And then I went to Howard University, to college, and I did more research on African folktales.
What was your major there?
My major was drama, darling. Drama. Okay. What else? I was in the College of Fine Arts.
Lesbian. Okay.
Yes, I was there with the famous Felicia Rashad, Debbie Allen, Charlie Brown, the great Jesse Norman, the great opera singer, and we had people coming there like Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, and we just had Muhammad Ali. So many great people came through Howard, and so it was a very good time to be there. Lots of upheaval, lots of demonstrating, because when we were at Howard, there was no Black Studies program. They didn't even allow the saxophone to be taught. Didn't want to teach blues. They didn't want to talk about jazz, anything like that. So at Howard University, this was back in the 60s, and I was one of the first, well, I was one of many who took over the administration building at Howard, and we shut it down. I was not the planner, I was not the main organizer, I was just one of the people who was there, you know, but it was an important time, you know, because they didn't want Amir Baraka to speak on the campus. They didn't want him to be inside the building. So what they came up with is for him to speak on the steps, of Frederick Douglass Hall. You know, and so he turned the place out. He was magnificent. And so
Can you give me a little bit before you go any further on, like, at HBCU?
Yes.
What was the issue? Were they trying to be a Harvard or a Yale, or what
yes,
was there?
at the time, Howard was considered the Black Harvard. It was considered the Black Harvard, and the whole idea was to really, it was the whole spirit, really, I feel, of the Black community. The Black community was us to assimilate. Us to assimilate and not realize the value of our African heritage, because in the classroom, and in the books, we were taught that Africa was the dark continent, that there was no history there was no culture there. So the thing was to be a very upstanding, a very part of the talented 10th that W.B. Du Bois talked about. You know, but in talking about that, it was to strive, it was to learn Latin and Greek and travel to Europe. But there was no past there. We had no past. So I was part of the generation who came there reading, you know, E. Franklin Frazier, the Black Bourgeoisie, reading Malcolm X and all those things, you know. And we said, we come from something. You know? And remember, I'm black and I'm proud, black is beautiful. I was a part of all of that. You know, there was a time where students were they were being kicked out of their homes because the parents did not want them to wear an afro. That was all that was going on. No afro. All of this. So it was a lot of turmoil. Plus you had the Vietnamese War. So there was a lot of protesting. I mean, they talk about how Howard students booed James Comey because he was there the other day. Well, when I was there, I think his name was William Hershey. I know his last name was Hershey. He was over the Selective Service Committee. He didn't even get a chance to open his mouth. Not only did we boo, we threw things at him, and we literally chased him off the stage. He ran off the stage, and some of the students ran after him. So
this wasn't the time when they actually had a white president.
Oh, no. When I got there, the president was black. Matter of fact, it was James Nabreth, who was a part of the team with Thurgood Marshall on the Brown versus the Board of Education. Right. And when I left, there was a black president. And before Nabreth was Mordecai Johnson. He had been there for over 34 years. And Howard had a good reputation, had great teachers. It's just that to deny us to learn about our heritage and our culture, that's what we had to fight for. We had to fight for it. And they didn't want us to do James Baldwin's plays. And I remember Mr. Dotson did it anyway, but it had to be edited. And Mr.
Which one was it?
It was Blues for Mr. Charlie, honey. Oh, okay. Yes, it was rough. It was rough. It was rough, but it was a great play, you know. And Mr. D wrote a great play about the slave ships and all of that. I mean, they just butchered that play. The man was crying. They edited it out, but he still did it. And they would tell us things that Charlie Parker and Bessie Smith were not important, that they had made a valuable contribution to the music without realizing that the base of the music in America is our music, is the spirituals, is the blues, is jazz, you know, all of that. So that's what we had to fight for, you know. So, and I still think we still have to keep on fighting for it because it's very easy for it to get turned around. It's very easy for it to go, because we're at a point in society now where the status quo wants us to go backwards. Right. Because when they say make America great again, what year are they talking about? You know, when are they talking about? What years? Because we've been fighting and struggling the whole time. Right. What we're involved in now is a continuation of discrimination, racism, and injustice and bigotry against our people, as well as all people of color, against transgender, there's always somebody in our society, which is so unfortunate, that has to be the brunt. That has to be someone we look down on, that we want to step on, you know, to get to the top. So we still have a lot to do. And people say, yes, we had a black president. Yes, we have accomplished a lot. Yes, we have, but there is so much more. Yeah, so much more we have to do. And so just working with Brother David, I just love working with him because he has even though he's young, I'm about 40 years older than he is, but he has such a fountain of wisdom in him, and he wants to do so much for the community. And I hope we as a people can help him and be there for him, because it's good to say Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, blah, blah, blah. I was there when they were around. And they didn't get a lot of support. They didn't get as much support as people talk about now.
Right.
You know, I was there with Muhammad Ali. Yes. Yeah. So here again, people can say blah, 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 blah. But the reality, we have to talk about exactly what happened during those times. We have to remember Kurt Flood and how he sacrificed himself. That's why the athletes are able to get the great pay that they're getting now. And Cole
that was
Kaepernick,
baseball, right?
Right, that was baseball. That was baseball. A lot of people have forgotten all about him. But here again, sports in our society, sports in America, you can get a PhD on racism in sports. And people forget that with Jackie Robinson and John Carlos and Tommy Smith, and how they were vilified. They were kicked out of the Olympics just because they lifted up their arms, and their gold medals were taken away from them. So again, this is a continuation, and they don't put this in the history books. They don't want to, because they want people to be in denial. They want people to forget. So we have to remind people what is going on, how long this has been going on, so something can be done about it. Because right now we're at a critical point in this country, where this country can go in so many different directions.
It feels like we're about to repeat another 60 years.
Yes, another, right. And we really have to stand up and not allow that to happen. You know, and we have to speak up. We have to speak out.
And part of my foundation is being raised by a great grandmother and a grandmother, and I'm seeing this relationship between you and David, and that is what is necessary.
Yes, it is.
That is what is needed, because we are forgetting what that sitting down and listening type of wisdom is. And I think the older generation is still, we're getting further apart from each other. And I don't want us to go backwards, retrograde back to 19 anything.
That's right.
You know,
I agree.
and push us back to a place where we got to start all over again. And our young people need to understand that a lot of these people that we, you know, wave a banner for, we kind of salute to now, they were not who we see them to be right now. And we have to acknowledge that. Now elders really have to like put their foot in our neck and make us listen and learn those things from a different perspective, other than they were not these demigods that they are right now.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. David. Do you have anything else you can add to that?
Well, Mama Linda definitely laid it out, and it's very important to acknowledge the history. I heard something a couple nights ago that really resonated. It's one of those things that I knew, but just hearing it really stuck with me. If you start the history of blacks with enslavement, then everything that we've done since looks like a vast improvement. But when you consider that our history does begin in Africa, in a time and era where we were kings and queens, we were pharaohs, we were chiefs and chiefesses. You know, we were at the height of technology and arts and culture. Then everything that's happened since is a vast downgrade, and we have to approach.
We're moving backwards.
Exactly, we have to approach our lives with that sense of we are nowhere near what we used to be, not where we could be, where we used to be. We are not.
You said it right. Where we could be.
Yeah, where we could be and where we should be. And I'll put it that way. We are not at our most supreme.
That's right.
And that's why, you know, certainly we hear about white supremacy a lot. And this is a decision that I've come to. I don't like the term white supremacy. If you think about all the methods and tactics that people who are associated with whiteness have used to establish themselves at the top of the racial hierarchy, they have been nefarious, they have been criminal, they have been anything but supreme. There's nothing supreme about that. So I call it white power, because that's what it is. It's the establishment of a system to assure they're top of the hierarchy, but there is nothing supreme about it. If it was supreme, they wouldn't mind an even playing field. And if they were so supreme, then they would rise to the top in the midst of all this.
But that's my fear for us as black people. And I always ask this question to everybody: is it that we want equality, or do we want to be supreme?
We want equity. So we need the process by which we can be equal again, at least in terms of the playing field. Now, what happens after that? let it be where it may.
Right.
My thing is, give us an equal playing field. In order for that to happen, given all the inequity that has been created, which is embedded in the system, well, it has to be reversed. There has to be the same intent and direct systems to level the playing field that has been unleveled for hundreds of years.
Right.
Now, what happens after that point, where we are all on an equal playing field, to me, that's self-determination.
Right.
At that point, whether you're white, you're black, whether you're gay, straight, or transgender, whether you are, young or old, you are a person. All those labels that have been put on us no longer matter. So what happens at that point is truly up to you. And that's the thing that a lot of people get misconstrued is, particularly in this country, we are about individualism. It's about what you can accomplish. But to outright deny the systems that are in place that can either elevate you or discredit you or mitigate you is foolish. And to call it self-determination.
Is it smart? Would it be smart of us to first, as a group of black people, acknowledge those things first? That we're, as individual as we are just people at the end of the day. Because I see that being a issue of us moving forward also. We see differences. We separate ourselves, whether you're black, purple, dark skin, or light skin. We do that within our own culture.
Well,
and it's been forced on us to be able to do that, but we still do it. We
even before enslavement, even before colonization, we as Africans, we had our own groups. I mean, there are hundreds of people within the continent of Africa. So even before there was anything tainted by colonization or enslavement, we did that. That's human nature. We will find groups of people that are more similar to us. Now, would it be based on the color of your skin? Well, hopefully at some point it's not. Can it be based on your orientation? Sure, that makes sense. Can it be based on your sex or gender? Sure, that also makes sense. But because of those distinctions, there should not be relevant placement in a hierarchy when it comes to that. If you ascend to the level of an athlete or the level of a PhD or whatever the case may be, it should be where it's of your own self-determination, not because of any inherent trait to you and someone else's determination as to what that trait means in the hierarchy of society. That's the problem.
So you think this wisdom is just out of the blue, but this is a doctoral candidate.
That's right. Yay, Bo.
For you.
Yay, Bo.
And not only are you well versed in your academics, but creatively, you're also you are a musician. And I've seen you act. I've seen you get up there. But I've seen he's a part of Woundworks production company. And if you have not been able to see a Woundworks production company move from underneath the rock that you're under, they do a lot of politically driven kind of Amiri Baraka style protest pieces.
That's a good description.
I can't even call it a play because it's
they're productions. And the one thing I will say, and this is not meant to be a correction, but I think a clarification is, I don't consider what Woundwork does political. I consider it to be social justice. There's nothing, politics involves compromise. We're not compromising on this. I refuse to compromise on what I desire as a human being. That's nothing to compromise. So therefore, in its nature, it's not political, but it is social justice. So even not to take it down another level, but what's happening in the NFL, at least in its clearest nature, is not political. That's social justice. Because again, there's nothing to compromise. I'm not compromising on the possibility of being killed just because an officer is afraid of me, inherently, consciously, unconsciously. That is not something to compromise. So therefore, to me, it's not political. It's an issue of social justice. A lot more people need to understand that distinction, because anytime there's something that people are protesting or they are refusing to accept, it's no. Politics involves compromise. We can compromise about the allocation of taxes or the allocation of wealth. We can compromise about foreign policy and domestic. No, we're not compromising on issues of social justice, issues of life and death, literally. That's different. So suffice to say, Woundwork involves itself in social justice, but they do a damn good job of it.
All right,
in conveying very important topics, very difficult topics, very important topics to discuss in an artistic manner that resonates with any audience. And I've seen it, whether it's school children, whether it's churches, whether it's conferences, whether the composition of the group is older or younger, black or white, wealthier or less wealthy, it resonates because art is universal. Everyone connects to art in some form or fashion, whether it's storytelling, whether it's theater, whether it's singing, whether it's dancing, whether it's visual, like in this space right here. So anyone can connect with it. You know, it's something you feel, it's something you touch, it's something you hear, it's something you see, it's something that you experience holistically, and that's what makes art such a powerful modality for addressing change.
Yay, Bo.
So how did this union with Mama Linda and Brother David come to be?
Well, we applied for a grant from the Maryland Council on the Arts, the tradition folklore section of it. And the idea was for David to work with me. Now the grant is called, quote, Master and Apprenticeship. But David is a master in his own.
That's what I said. Right. But which way are we?
He's a master. So I'm learning a lot from him. I hope he's learning a little bit from me.
You know
but that's how the grant is. That we are to work together, and then we are to present a presentation at the Folk Life Arts Festival that's going to be held in the summer at Creative Alliance. They have this beautiful festival every year there, and then we are like showcased to show what we have learned together.
That's an awesome mashup.
But I would say that that's the official way that we are working together. I would say that this relationship was forged even before that. So we're both members of the Griot Circle of Maryland.
Yes.
We're both members of the National Association of Black Storytellers. So we were certainly aware of each other.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. Even before we officially started collaborating in this process. But the one thing that I've told Mama Linda is it is interesting how life takes you full circle. So I got into storytelling under Mama Mary Carter Smith. Who was the co-founder of the National Association of Black Storytellers, along with Mama Linda Goss. I started at about 9 years old, and Mama Mary took me under her wing and taught me the art of storytelling.
Tell us who Mama Mary is, so people that don't know. Just a brief little introduction of who she is.
Mama Mary Carter Smith, a woman of so many virtues and so many accomplishments. When I strive to be immortal like her.
Yes.
Because when you have created the legacy that she's created, she is immortal.
Yes.
She left this plane 10 years ago, but she has always been there.
She's always with us.
So I can't name everything, but you know, she was the co-founder along with Mama Linda of the National Association of Black Storytellers. She was a critical part of the Arena Players.
Yes.
Boys and Girls Club. I mean, you know, from Birmingham to Baltimore, her legacy is loud. Maryland's official griot, Baltimore's official griot, internationally known for her prowess in African storytelling. So,
and the writer of several books.
Absolutely, of course, and many poems and many pieces of art. The people that she knew, the people interacting with Langston Hughes in Harlem. She was a mountain of wisdom and history and experience. So I had the distinct pleasure of her seeing this little boy who had the audacity to tell a story in her presence, and first recognizing it, acknowledging it, and then saying, I want to teach him this art form. And so for me, it is an honor to her that not only do I continue to tell stories, but I've been able to apply this art form in a way that benefits public health, which is what my work is in as an academic. But coming full circle, I started my storytelling career with Mama Mary, and I'm continuing it with Mama Linda. To me, that is full circle. So it is a distinct pleasure to be able to have this other grandmother figure in my life. Mama Mary was one of many, and that continues with Mama Linda.
It's nothing, and I wasn't fortunate enough to have grandfathers, but like I said, was raised in the house from before birth with a great grandmother, and it's nothing like that tradition of storytelling. That's really the reason I'm an actor. I didn't ever intend on doing that, but the idea that was my strong suit. I could tell a story from beginning to end and be as vivid about it as I possibly can. Came from sitting on the weekend, Saturday mornings with my great grandmother, but that is necessary, and I want to see that tradition get spotlighted like poetry is in this community. So we're going to take a quick break, pay some bills. We'll be right back here on the Artist Exchange Radio Show, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
Whoa. The moment my son saw a redwood tree.
It's huge!
Is the moment I knew that for him.
You can't even see the top of that thing.
living.
Even the sky has no limit.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. Your moment is out there. Find it at discovertheforest.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com, the home of Talk Lately with Monty, every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Do yourself a favor and listen to this hilarious flashback on Charm City Direct Radio Show.
You know me. I eat like this all the time. Do I gain any weight? No, at all. You can have my belly, right? I'm giving away body parts. Somebody said they need a butt. Somebody said they
I
need
could
a
use a
butt.
little extra tissue Daddy.
I can pop it right now.
He out here giving out butt cheek donations.
Hey everybody, it's your girl, the magical glow getter herself, Ayanna Maureen, co-host of the Charm City Direct Radio Show. Catch me and the rest of my team every Saturday, 5 to 7 p.m. on BeExposedRadio.com.
Man, it is what it is. Man, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is.
This Fly T Miles, also known as Tyree Miles, and Mr. Miles the writer.
Hip Hop K, check us out every Friday on Be Exposed Radio at 9/11.
Coming to y'all soon.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com, the home of Talk Lately with Monty, every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio. I am your host, Hollywood. Main host.
Hello.
Nate. Oh, we reversing today. How y'all doing out there? How y'all doing? No, we were just in here discussing just everything that's been going on politically and also about the African culture. Would you like to say anything else? Or?
Sure. So I'll let Mama Linda talk. So at the Griot Circle in Maryland, we do have an upcoming event on October 8th called Love Stories.
Mm-hmm.
This is an annual event that takes place with the Griot Circle, and as it sounds like, it's stories about love.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic for this year's event is what's love got to do with it. And love stories is typically we'll say not adult themed but adult oriented.
Yes.
So these are stories that will resonate with adults.
Yes.
One thing that they are definitely doing is trying to appeal to a younger audience. They want them to know that storytelling is for all of us, not just the elders, but for the young folks as well. So there will be music. I'll be doing some African drumming.
Yes.
There'll be some other musical performances as well, but it's always a wonderful event.
Yes.
It will be at the Arena Players, which is 801 McCullough Street. You are definitely, the whole city is more than welcome to attend. It's a wonderful experience, and we hope you will check it out.
Is this a one-day event?
So it's a one-night event.
And the tickets, there is a fee.
There is a fee. Hey, we gotta get paid.
$20 because this is the biggest fundraiser that the Griot Circle has every year. They really just have this one main fundraiser, and they do a lot of wonderful things. The Growing Griots is a part of the Griot Circle, where they work with youth for practically the whole school year. And then the youth do a Kwanzaa program, They have a wonderful graduation, and the storytellers who work with them, they work for no pay. This is something that they volunteer to do. And Brother David's mother, Mama Deborah, is one of the teachers, storytelling teachers, one of the griots who works with the youth. So the Griot Circle has been around for a long time, probably almost 30 years, because they were the first organization to organize to promote the National Association of Black Storytellers, and in the tradition, the National Festival of Black Storytelling and Conference. And so, and Mother Mary and I are the founders of the National Association of Black Storytellers, as well as the festival. And the festival began here in Baltimore. That's very important to say, on the campus of Morgan State University. And every 10 years we come home. We come home back to Baltimore. And between those 10 years, we travel all over the country, telling stories. This year, in November the 8th through the 12th, we will be in Wichita, Kansas.
Okay.
And we will be having our festival there. And our theme is going to be From Chains to Wings, the African American Story. And this will be our 35th annual National Black Storytelling Festival and Conference. I brought you a brochure to look at. And I invite you to come to Wichita. If you can't make it this November, then I invite you to our next festival, which will be in November of 2018. And that will be in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we just travel around. Then the 10th, we'll be right back here in Baltimore for the 40th. We celebrated the 30th here in 2002.
I was introduced to the Griot Society when I was at Furman L. Templeton through this group called Project Raise that I was in. And it was always amazing to me because I knew storytelling, but I had never seen it from the point of view of our culture, talking about our culture and such. And I remember those years that I was there and in Project Raise, that was definitely my introduction to being African and Afrocentric and folk tales and so on and so forth.
That's important.
And it really gave me I think I had a leg up on when it came to being an acting student, because that is definitely a tool that we have in being able to tell a story, even if you don't know the lines, you know the story. But it definitely gave me a sense of culture, because I grew up in private schools, so I learned about Latin and everybody else's culture except for my own.
That's right.
And it really gave me a balance, so much so that when I chose a college, I chose the blackest school in Baltimore, which was Coppin.
Great.
But I know you feel that yearning to be closer to who you are, and I was introduced to a lot of those places like Arena Players and Morgan as well, and a lot of these places that are really black in terms of what they produce under the tutelage of Professor Amini Courts. It really gave me a sense of self, and then I began to learn about all of these individuals. I think we have a phone call. Hello, caller.
Hey, you guys still taking call?
Yeah, we still taking call. How's it going?
Hello.
How's it going? Hello? Is he still on? Hello, caller. So if you're trying to call in, give us a call, 410-702-5657, or you can text in your comments or questions to 443-642-9403. We have Mama Linda Goss, and we have David. Say your last name for me, because I don't want to butcher it,
It's all good. Fakunle.
Fakunle.
Yes.
We have them here today, and they're giving us a taste of who they are and what they do. They've created this mashup, this partnership in lieu of storytelling and folk tales and giving back our story to us and changing that narrative of who we are beyond slavery. And I'll say to you, in high school, I actually almost got suspended because I was in a history class, American history class, and it was crazy because we had one day of African history, one day of black history, I'll say that. The whole 4 years that I was at Archbishop Curley, one day. And that one day consisted of my 25-year-old white male teacher telling me that slavery wasn't as bad as we thought it was. And our history was starting from black slavery in America. And his analogy was why he equated us to farm tools. Why would someone abuse their tools? And part of me was like cringing, and there was another young man, I never forget, Kojo and me was sitting in this class, and his example to the class was on segregation and separation, was telling me and Kojo to go stand outside of the classroom. Well, I stood outside the classroom and I kept walking, and a part of me was like, this is stupid. So when they called my house that night, they told my mother I walked out of school and all that, and when I explained it to the president, which was another white Franciscan monk, I just he didn't understand why I was angry. Well, I had learned all this stuff in Project Raise growing up, and I knew this wasn't right. So you're telling all these white males in this class that this is what black people are. So they were laughing and snickering. Kojo was more upset than I was. I was more angry because they were laughing. We already had a racial issue at Archbishop Curley already, being it's like 500 to 600 of them and maybe 20 of us, literally, at the time that I was there. And it did something to me because there was no type of, well, let me bring somebody in to discuss this if I don't know it myself. And this teacher went to NYU and he studied history, but apparently they skipped over that at NYU as well, because one day of Black history, and it wasn't a lot of us there, but to tell me that, equate me to a farm tool and tell me that, you know, slavery wasn't as bad as we made it out to be, and why would I treat my equipment with such harsh treatment?
That's crazy.
Ridiculous.
I never forget that day. I never forget.
And it's crazy because in the school system, they don't even teach you what happened before the Atlanta Trade Slave.
That's right. That's right.
And they don't teach you about the Library of Alexandria.
That's right. That's right.
History and how they destroyed all our scrolls and our books and everything like that because they didn't want us to know about all of them.
That's right. Yay, Bill.
Well, it's very hard to admit the atrocities that you've been committed throughout history. So it doesn't really surprise me that our history is so mitigated and so confined to one fact that we were enslaved. No, there's much more to that, and it's interesting. You went to private school, so did I. So I went to the Friends School of Baltimore,
which was a little nicer.
Which was nicer, and I give them a lot of credit. That was my first introduction to white people. Was going to Friends, and one of the things that was, I can only imagine if it had gone differently how it would have turned out. Granted, I had knowledge itself, and I owe that to the National Great Blast and Wax Museum. So I had a good knowledge of my history. There was nothing that they could tell me that I didn't already know. As a matter of fact, I told them. And what I will give them credit for is that they listened. And I think, you know, using that example in today's context, I think that's all we really ask for. Just listen. Just
let people be heard.
Yeah, just listen. You know, understand that you don't know everything. We don't know everything. So it's not that I'm just asking you to listen to me. No, I'm willing to listen to you as well. And when we're actually listening, not just hearing, but actually listening, which means we're taking in the information that's being given to us, that's how we facilitate understanding.
And people don't realize the significance of other people's cultures. I mean, I loved learning about other cultures, other civilizations, but it always felt like something was missing to me. And I also had those parents, probably similar to the parents that sent their children to Howard when you were there, who wanted their children to have a better existence. And negating our history does not help in that process, because then I go into the world blind. Those few years after Curly, I felt like I didn't know who I was. I felt like I had no sense of purpose, and I was just working towards what I was expected to do. Hold on, we have a caller. Hey, caller. How's it going? Hello. So one note: if you're trying to call into the show, you can't listen and call in on the same device. It's not possible. It's not going to let you hear us correctly. So if you're trying to call in, you either have to turn the show on or call us from a different device. And again, that number is 410-702-5657, or you can text us at 443-642-9403. And just going back on, it's just hard to really teach Black history without telling the brutal truth the honest truth.
That's right. You got to tell it.
More organizations like yours need to be around, because I remember that's how I got it after school program and Project Raise, and the griot would come once a week and to teach us how to do drums and make instruments and tell us stories and introduce us to the fables and folk tales that were around.
I wanted to give you some background about the college you attended.
Coppin State University. Don't forget that
university. Let you know that Mother Mary Carter Smith is a graduate.
Yes, ma'am.
And Lucille Clifton was artist in residence there for some time. You know, she's a great poet. If you haven't heard of Lucille Clifton, she has since made transition, but she called Baltimore her home. And she wrote a lot of great poems. Lucille Clifton. And they did have her book down at Red Emma's. Again, when you go to a lot of these bookstores, you still don't see a lot of our books. That's why the black bookstores are so important. And right now, there are only about 50 so in the whole country, in the whole United States. 50 black bookstores that are still
Everyone's Place.
Yeah, Everyone's Place. I love Everyone's Place. I was down there the other day. I gave them my book to look at, and hopefully they will carry it.
And they have an expansive collection of black
great collection. They
writers.
They already have my book, Talk That Talk. I don't know if you're familiar with Talk That Talk.
I've seen that one.
Okay, Talk That Talk. This is called the Bible of Black Storytelling, because it focuses on black storytellers, black stories, and black folklores. Because a lot of times people don't even know black folklores even exist. But they have gone to college and gotten their PhDs in folklore. And that's very important to know too, because as you're saying, fortunate for me, I went to a segregated school down south. And I had great teachers. All our teachers were black. And in our home, we knew about James Weldon Johnson, Langston Hughes, Paul Langston Dunbar. And we would sing spirituals and things like that. But my history teacher, Helen Harris, was a very brave woman. She's a shiro. She's the one who introduced us to black history. She introduced me to Richard Wright, to James Baldwin. Now, I was a teenager reading Black Boy and reading Another Country. And luckily, my parents didn't believe in censorship. They felt if Miss Harris recommended it, it was a good book. But it just set me on fire. I thought it was a great book. I read If He Hollers, Let Him Go, Chester Himes. And what she would do, she would bring in all this material on black history, all these great photos, all these of great heroes and sheroes like Frederick Douglass and Ralph Bunche and Ralph Wilkins, all these different people. And she would pass them out. And we would look at them. We would read information about them. And she would say, now if the superintendent comes in here, when he comes in here, just take your history book and put it over these photographs. And sometimes he would come in and we would just quietly put our books over these photographs, because if he had caught her, she'd have been kicked out immediately, you know. But she's the one who told us really about how we had a rich history about Africa. She even introduced us to the Elijah Muhammad, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and she was married to a Baptist preacher, and he was head of the NAACP in Knoxville, Tennessee. So she wanted us to know a variety about our history, not just one part, but a variety, you know.
So part of the Griot Society, the Black Griot Society, is do you train people how to tell stories or how to tell their stories?
Yes, I would say how to tell their stories. Everyone is a storyteller, and everyone has a great story, a valuable story to tell. So when you come to our festivals, we have workshops at our festivals, you just feel the spirit. You just become immersed, and you just start telling your own story. Because the opening festival, the opening night, we have the Love Circle, the Mother Mary Carter Smith Love Circle, where we hold hands and we remember and respect the ancestors. And then people are allowed to just share what they want to share. And we end the last day with the Mama Linda Goss Circle of Unity, the Umoja Circle, and where people can say what they have learned, what they like. And our festival is open to everybody. We are a nonprofit organization. We have members who are of all backgrounds, of all races. members who are all religions. We welcome all people from all, it doesn't matter what your color, background, gender is. You are welcome to tell stories. And we have a youth component. And now we have 15 affiliates all over the country. So we have really grown. And when you come to our festival, there's over 50 different activities going on. So much is going on. So yes, that storytelling, that story in you is going to come out.
Can you, we are in a space where a lot of people don't know, like beyond my great-grandmother telling me about her mother and father, like I don't know much about life prior to that. I mean, she told me their story, like her story growing up, and like there was no history. Like her parents were sharecroppers,
right?
And out of slavery,
right?
So how do we? Can you give us some pointers on how to begin to go into ourselves and start telling our stories? Like if there's that person in your family, or how should we go about like collecting those stories and try to connect the dots and just keep what we do have alive?
Well, like you mentioned, your grandmother. You have to tell the stories that she told you and what the stories that your great-grandmother told you. You need to write those down, or you need to record them, and you need to start telling them. You also need to think in terms of, did she tell you any animal stories or any fables? If you went to church, what stories were told in the church? Because the black church experience is different from other experiences. In the black church, you hear the preacher tell animal stories. You hear the black preacher is a storyteller, just like the black comedian is a storyteller. Because see, when I talk about black storytelling, I'm talking about the way in which we tell a story, and black storytelling encompasses not only us telling an oral story, it can tell our whole body. We dance our stories, we sing our stories, we shout our stories, we moan and groan our stories, we do call and response. And when you talk in terms of the Aesop fables, that came from us. That came from the African culture. And what interests me as a storyteller, and what I think other storytellers have to do, when you go deep inside yourself, you just start tracing the source, going as far back as you can. And I discovered that my great-great-grandfather was born in 1825. He was a Methodist minister, and he was a blacksmith. So once you start searching, then you come up with all kinds of information. And to me, it always leads you back to Mother Africa. Mother Africa is the beginning. It is the beginning of our species, of Homo sapiens. Right. And when they say, well, you didn't invent this, you didn't invent that, you didn't invent the computer, you didn't invent the car. Yes, but we invented the wheel. We invented fire. We invented language. We invented writing. I mean, they always say that we don't have a written history. Yes, we do. They have dug up rocks with writings on them from South Africa that are over 200,000 years old. We were the ones who walked out of the continent and started populating all over the earth. So in reality, and some of the anthropologists and social scientists have said this, and a lot of people don't want to accept it, we're all African people. We're all one people.
Well, it's been proven now.
It has been proven. Proven so many times over and over again. We're all one people. But this division comes because some people want to say, I'm better than this person, or I'm going to control. Right. There's a story I tell where lightning taught hare how to make fire. Now, hare made this big fire. Invited all the animals to come around. Oh, they were delighted. They got excited. They threw all kinds of things in this fire. The fire grew bigger, 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 bigger. And the fire burned the whole forest down. So the question is, what is the moral to that story? What is the proverb? Because a lot of our stories, they end with sayings. They end with proverbs. So let me ask you, when you think of the fire, what does the fire symbolize?
Hatred.
Hatred? What do you think it symbolizes?
Pure, like it's burning all the bad stuff out, like clear.
Could be. And see, there is no right or wrong answer. Now, the proverb I use at the end of the story is, knowledge can teach you how to make a fire, but from wisdom, you learn how to control it. And fire when you think in terms of, let's say, this country, because what's
Say
great
that
about
again,
stories.
Say that one more time.
What?
Please. Say that proverb one more time.
Knowledge teaches you how to make a fire, but from wisdom, you learn how to control the fire.
Amen.
And fire, if you relate it to, because see, you can take a proverb, I mean, you can take a fable and relate it to any type of story, I mean, any type of situation, any type of environment. And in the environment, in the culture we're in now, fire represents power. Power. People are so hungry for power. And part of that power contains people grabbing for money. When you think about our leaders like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, they weren't about making money. They weren't rich, but they were wealthy with wisdom. Same thing applies to Dick Gregory. Like they said, Dick Gregory was a comedian, but he was an activist.
Storyteller.
He was a storyteller. And Dick Gregory is in the book Talk That Talk. You know, I had the honor of interviewing him, and he was about people. He was real people. You know, he was, again, great storyteller. And what I love about Brother David is that he is a master drummer. And you can trace all of our storytelling, all of our rhythms to the drum. The drum is the heartbeat of the people. And that's at the base of all our, whether you want to call it hip hop, rapping, no matter what you want to call it, it's the drum. It's the drum.
Right. This really took me back to childhood. I loved Anansi and the Spider.
Yes. Yes.
Where the Wild Things Are. This learning about history, because that's how my great grandmother taught me how to read the Bible. Like, we're not supposed to take these stories literally. It's supposed to be a parable or a lesson that you take from it to apply it to your life. And that's how she got me interested in reading the Bible or hearing scripture, because it used to be very boring to me because I didn't connect to it. And I think if more of us, especially our young people, were taught how to do that, connect what we see with our own personal experience, we would care and have more compassion for individuals and not just stuff. Do you have a favorite folktale or parable that just speaks to you? Like, which one that you know, or which one speaks to you most? I'll throw that out.
I can't say I have a favorite because I tell all kinds of stories. I tell stories that actually happened to me in my life. You know, I remember, I'll try to make this story short. I was lost in New York. Now, that's a terrible feeling to be lost in Manhattan. Had rushed there to see my daughter as an actress, rushed there to see her in a play. Couldn't remember the name of the theater, couldn't remember where the play was. I had taken a bus, gotten off at the Port of Authority. So all these people, just people. So I became overwhelmed.
People even left out the port.
Right. And I was trying to ask people for their help, for directions. They just ignored me. People were coming out of the Broadway theaters ignoring me. But I do remember that my daughter's play was not Broadway. It wasn't off Broadway. It wasn't off Broadway. It was off Broadway somewhere. So I finally realized that it was part of a festival. So I went up to a newsstand and got this newspaper, and sure enough, I found the name of the theater and where it was. Now, this was a long time ago, over 20 years ago, before there were cell phones, smartphones, and computers and all of this stuff. Yeah, a long time ago. I couldn't Google it, and this was a long way before that. So I went to ask the newspaper man for directions, and he kind of bent his head down and turned away from me. And I noticed as he sold papers, he never showed his face. He would just sell the paper, you know, make change and stuff like that. I was desperate. I needed help, you know, and so I went to him again. I said, "Mister, I need help. I need directions." And suddenly he turned and looked me in the eye. And his face was badly disfigured, like he had been in, I don't know, in the war or burned or dropped from a building. I don't know. It was so horribly disfigured. And yet we made eye contact. I wasn't interested in how his face looked. He was a human being. And I knew he could probably give me directions. And so we made eye contact. And I could see the humanity in his eyes. And he could see in me that I was a lost child, that I needed help. And so he gave me directions, and I found my way. And he kind of smiled, because it was like someone had recognized that he could be of help.
Right.
This poor man, in his eyes, I could see years of pain and suffering and torture. I don't know what happened to this poor child of God, but he had suffered, but yet he had a job, you know, and there's no telling how he had to lead his life. But I do connect and talk to homeless people, and I've learned so much from homeless people. And one homeless man in West Baltimore, he would be out in the street, you know, asking for change, and like he told me, a smile don't cost nothing. Don't cost nothing. And one day I rang my bells, I had people to gather around, and I said, I officially named Darnell Morris the mayor of West Philly, the mayor of this block. And people clapped and applauded him, because he was such a nice person. And yet he would tell me that he hated to go back to where he lived, because the people that were so mean to him, it was so cruel. He was in like a shelter, you know. But here again, as my mother taught me, no one is better than you. You're no better than anyone else. We're all children of God, and you don't know who is going to help you. You know, you can't look down on people, and you can't idolize people because they're driving around in a Mercedes. You know, and that's one of the problems facing us in this country. Not only do we have a race problem, we have a class problem. We have a problem where people think if you don't have any money, then you're nothing. You know, and that's one thing we have to talk about too, the race and the class, and what is really valuable. Because people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all these people, it was about making a contribution. It was about character, you know. And I think that's one of the things that Black storytelling talks about. We always talk about remembering and honoring the ancestors, honoring and respecting the elders. Respecting is key, and we uplift the youth. And that's really our message, you know, from our organization.
So, David, in learning this tradition and coming from being a musician, a drummer, how have you learned how to tell your story?
In a number of ways, and that's the beauty of storytelling, is you never tell the same story twice, and there's so many modalities by which you can get the story across to any audience. So I tell people that I tell my story through drumming, I tell it through acting, I tell it through my research. My research is about Baltimore. My research is about the state of Maryland. My research is about highlighting the inequities and inequalities that those who are non-white, those who are lower income deal with, how our environment affects our behavior, how it affects our outcomes. So for me, being able to expand the reach of my story, to be able to expand the different mechanisms by which I can tell my story is very important to me. But my message is clear regardless of what story I'm telling and how I'm telling the story. I'm here for one clear purpose, and that's to be a manifestation of love in everything that I do, and to elevate those who do not have the opportunity and means to elevate themselves, not because of their own choosing, because typically it's not their choice. It's the only option that's been given to them. So for me, it is about creating opportunity for those who have been historically and systemically deprived of opportunity. And again, whether I do that as a researcher, whether I do that as an activist, whether I do that in government, whether I do that in politics, whether I do that through arts and culture, that is my message, and the message is consistent across whatever modality and across whatever sector I'm in.
What challenges have you faced since you've started this journey?
I would say any challenge that I've really faced is self-inflicted, and I think that's just the challenges of life, honestly. I'm always surprised, and one of the things that's unfortunate is that you have to be prepared for opposition. And you know, for me, particularly when I went to Johns Hopkins, where I still am, I was prepared for opposition. And I will always remember my first day of orientation. We were on the 9th floor with this window overseeing East Baltimore, where I'm from. And you know, I'm looking around the room. There's new students in the Department of Mental Health. There's the faculty. Everyone has a PhD or an MD. And I stand in front of the audience and I tell them, I look around this room and I don't see anyone else that looks like me. And I said that my goal 15, 20 years from now is that I will walk back in this room and see more people that look like me. And I sat down. So from day one, I let them know why I'm here. I drew the line in the sand, and no one is there to cross that line. More so than that, they have become allies. And I think that's where the power of knowledge itself comes in, and that's something that I want to impart on people. I'm not saying it's a cakewalk. It's not a cakewalk. But there is something almost magical about knowing who you are, knowing what you represent, and knowing exactly why you're here on this earth, because I think people can feel that. No one has challenged that notion. No one has challenged my desire. No one has challenged my goals. If anything, they've asked how they can help, or they're curious, and I teach them. And that's another thing, is to be humble and to be willing to help others understand. The only thing I ask for people when it comes to any of these issues that I discuss is know that you don't know. If you can acknowledge that you don't know and are willing to learn, then I'm willing to teach you. And that has been one of the tools, and just kind of one of the things that's really made my experience throughout my life very beneficial, is that I've had many people around me who are willing to learn, and I'm willing to teach them, and again, they become allies in this fight.
Okay, because I was going to ask, like, when you're faced with these obstacles, like, what steps do you take personally to actually overcome? A sense of detachment. So you can't take everything personally. I've become really good at that. Having an even temperament. I was not always that way, and really it is understanding. So Mama Leonard talked about many heroes and sheroes, and particularly civil rights. I have the utmost respect for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and many others, but the one person in where I am right now that I really have gravitated towards and really appreciate his approach is Fred Hampton. I loved what he did. Number one, he was so incredibly young to be as powerful as he was when it came to civil rights, but to me, and the reason why he was assassinated at 21 years old was that he knew exactly what needed to be done in order to turn the tides when it came to civil rights, and not just for people of color, but for poor whites. And that's who he was. That's where his coalition was building. It was building a relationship between blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, and poor whites, and that's what got him killed. Because if you can turn this into, if you can help people understand, particularly those who live in rural areas, those who live in low-income areas, who have health inequalities, who have health disparities that rival any black health disparities that exist, and help them realize that their whiteness has not saved them.
That's right. There you go.
That the same people that they continually elect to power don't care about them, just like they don't care about us. It's easy to not care about us because our skin color is different, but they care about them because they don't have any money. The same systems that prevent us from acquiring wealth don't work in their advantage too as well, and their whiteness is not helping them. That changes. That is the fundamental shift when it comes to the power imbalance in this country that is necessary. I have an event. There's an event coming up that a friend invited me to that's bringing together people from a number of social justice and just kind of social organizations with funders in Baltimore, and that's exactly what I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell you, no matter how this project manifests itself, no matter who's leading it, no matter what the organization is, no matter what the target audience is, everyone is pretty much united in the fact that they are trying to undo this system of white power, which does include you. The question is, do you fundamentally, both as an individual and as an institution, believe in our humanity? Do you believe in the humanity of black people? Do you believe in the humanity of Latinos? Do you believe in the humanity of Native Americans, the LGBTQIA community? Do you believe, I know there's a lot of them, right, et cetera, et cetera, but do you believe in the humanity of people that can manifest themselves in an unlimited number of ways? If you do, and if you don't mind funding that, not just funding it with money, but funding it politically, funding that from an infrastructural standpoint, then you can be my ally,
and not hiding behind status quo or what has been or what the guidelines say has to be
exactly done. I refuse to abide by guidelines. If there's one thing, not to get super, because now this is becoming political, if there's one thing that has made my life easier, is having Donald Trump as the president of the United States, and I'll tell you why. Because now the gloves are off. I no longer have to sugarcoat anything that I talk about when it comes to the issues of social justice in the country, because he has made it apparently clear that being overly misogynistic, overly racially insensitive, overly prejudiced against anybody who isn't a rich white person, make that clear, rich white person.
And the people that don't necessarily represent him or look like him, it's the other people who was like, this is not a problem. This can't
including
be.
poor
white
people. Exactly.
Right. These people
and
are
that is the lesson they're learning
now, like, because it's being directed towards them now. They feel the brunt of it now.
Exactly.
But we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with this conversation that needs to be an extended conversation. But we'll be back. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com, the home of Talk Lately with Monty, every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
50s, late 40s, early 50s. That's not uncommon. It's a lot of. I mean, I can give you examples like that.
But it's a good thing he's dead, because she can actually move on. Like, you can't move on. If he was alive, if he was alive and she found out she was having sex with her father for 15 years, you can't move on from that. Somebody's got to die.
You can't. It's gonna be hard.
Somebody's got to die.
So wait, that means he didn't know either, though.
Immediately, so I can stop vomiting, because I don't have nothing else left to vomit. All my insides, all my skeleton.
He didn't know either. That's what would be the crazy part.
He wouldn't. He still doesn't know, because he's dead. How does that game go? Marry, screw, kill? How does that work when it's your dad? Oh my gosh, we talk about stuff like this and more every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Talk Lately, the radio show. Only on BeExposedRadio.com and on YouTube live, where you can see it.
This the man that holds it down, Mr. Showtime, D the Boss. Check us out every Saturday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on BeExposedRadio.com.
I'm in a relationship. My girl happens to be long distance. So with that being said,
I beat my thing like it owes me money. Sorry.
Because I asked that because so many people are not comfortable.
Here's my thing. It's mine.
That's right.
And you need to know yourself before you can have somebody please. If you can't tell nobody how to please you, if you don't know how to please yourself.
That's right.
You know what you like. You know what you like. You know the stroke, all that. So you're right. And I mean, you shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's your body. Yeah, I'm over here struggling with the ear.
Yeah, I'm glad it's you today. I'm glad it's you today, brother.
Oh, this thing going to drop. It's going to drop about at least like 5 times.
I'm over there struggling.
So ED, do you have a problem with masturbating?
No, I don't. I don't masturbate often, because I have a fear of going blind. So, yes. When I found, yes.
You could go blind from
yes.
You are listening to BeExposedRadio.com.
You have moved to Philly?
Yep, in December. It hasn't been official, but
are you from Baltimore?
Okay. Born and raised. We back on? Welcome back to the Artist Exchange Radio Show, here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. We have the pleasure of having Mama Linda Goss and brother, soon to be Dr. David
Fakunle. You can still call me brother, man. The whole doctor thing, that's for certain people that gotta acknowledge me.
No, and it was crazy. A white professor at Coppin told me black universities are the only people that use the word doctor. At white universities, it's just
it's kind of true. Honestly, I can't speak for black universities, but at least at Hopkins, a lot of times they like just call me by my first name. I only do that until I will always acknowledge you as doctor until you give me permission to call you otherwise. Only because I respect the work that goes into being called doctor. If you don't want to be called, that's totally fine. And I'll get to that point maybe after a year or so.
But claim it, brother.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Claim it.
I can't wait to fill out surveys now. When I came from Mr. the Doctor, I love it.
But that's what we, and when he said it was a white professor at Coppin that said that to me, and it was crazy because we all kept calling him doctor. Well, that's your title.
Yes.
We don't know anything else. That's what we've been trained to call you.
Right.
And I respect that because I know the time. I know what it was to get a BA. So I can only imagine the brain stretching that it requires to get a doctor.
That's part of our tradition. That's part of our culture. My mother raised me to say doctor to someone.
Mr.
Right, Mr. and Mrs. or Miss. And I remember one of her dear friends, when she received her master's, that was like, oh my God, that was like one of the greatest achievements one could imagine. Because back in those days, if you went to school, it was great. And if you graduated from the 8th grade, that's all for a lot of people went was the 8th grade. And you got a diploma in the 8th grade. And most of the time, if you went to high school, especially in my case, where I was from, the high school was in Knoxville. And my mother went to Knoxville to Austin for high school. And then for college, went to Knoxville College. Because college was still segregated, especially down south, so.
And this was Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee. So any type of achievement, yes, if you were a minister or a preach, if you were a medical doctor, like my uncle was the medical doctor, the black doctor in my town, the only black doctor there. And when he died, there was no black doctor there for years, and most of the people in my town were born in the house. I was born in the house. Because they were afraid to go to the hospital because you heard a lot of stories about what went on in the hospitals. So here again, it is a matter of respect to say doctor this or Mr. and Mrs. because for a black person, all the hard work, all what you had to go through to get to that point, just like when you said the white person said that we say doctor and they don't. People used to make fun of black people. I remember they started doing this on television when we would say, I want to thank the Lord, I want to thank my mom, and white people started saying, why do you do all of that? Joe Louis always said that. That's part of our tradition. That's part of our belief, is to thank God, and so
no matter where we are in life.
Here again, we're in a situation, and that's why things are coming to full head here. We're in a situation where we're not going to allow people to tell us how we should think and what we should say. If we want to kneel, we will kneel. Because now, as opposed to the 50s and 60s, we all realize that we are human and we are American citizens. And we're entitled to all the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, and all of that. Whereas back in the 50s, just to say you were a human, just to fight, you had to fight through so many challenges. Because I was raised on where you sit in the back of the bus. I was raised where you had to, I never drank at the water fountain. The color water fountain looked so nasty. And the white water fountain, I didn't drink it. My mother allowed me to drink it, either one of them. And it was a situation when you got on the bus, you had a bag of chicken with you, a box of chicken with you, and you knew to hold it in. You were not going to use the bathroom all the way down there. You had to wait. You had to wait because the bathrooms were segregated and the black bathrooms were a mess. So again, our people have been through so much, and those stories need to be told by the people because they are still not in the history books. They're not going to be in the history books, and that's what black storytelling is all about, getting people to tell their story of what they went through, how they got over, where they are now, and what they went through. Those stories are very crucial because people are still saying things like, I don't know what racism is. Why are black people complaining? They doing this, they got this, blah, 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 blah. They don't know the story behind all of that. That's why it's important to talk about Jackie Robinson and why he was chosen. He was chosen for a reason, because he was able to take all that terrible things they said about him.
And he was incredibly talented.
And he was incredibly talented. While he was playing, they threw a black cat on the field and said, "That's your mama." They said all kinds of terrible things during his time. They made him take pictures with racist managers and players who had just called him the N-word during the game and forced him to take a picture. And Jackie Robinson did not stand up for the flag. He did not stand for the flag, and he told why. So here again, when you look at the black athlete, you have to look and see where they came from. You also have to realize too, because sports is out here now, the NFL, NBA, and even college football, college basketball, it is a form of slavery. Let's be honest, it's a form of slavery, where the owners can choose and pick and choose and sell to you and do this, all this type of stuff. So it's no different than what happened on the plantation. And that's what the number 45 wants the owners to have, a plantation mentality. When he called the players SOBs, and the way he said it, we knew what he really wanted to say. And he was saying, get your boys in line. You are afraid of them. All that plantation talk. Yet when Charlottesville occurred, he didn't say any of that. He didn't call any of them names. Really, they were waving Confederate flags and all of that. So I agree with Brother David. Yeah, things are out here in the open now. You know, but we have to remember, we are Americans. You know, we're sure I'm African American. Sure, I acknowledge Mother Africa as my own. But we're Americans, so we're entitled to everything. You know, you want me to pay my taxes, then I'm going to have my rights. And we have a right to speak up, and we can never forget that. We have to always take a stand and say what is going on and what is on our mind. And it's not a matter whether people have to agree or disagree. The thing is to have a conversation and let people know where you're coming from. You know, everybody's story has to be told.
I'll preface this next question to both of you in terms of, and I'll say, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's true.
Our generation that we're in now, the millennials, and what do you call the ones behind the millennials, these two groups of people are very angry.
Yes.
And I think it's necessary because that's what promotes change and growth and moving ahead. But they're staying in this anger. We are staying in this anger, and there's nothing being accomplished. And this anger begetting more anger, which will then result in violence at some point, which may be necessary. We don't know. But can you speak to a time where it feels like we're getting back to, and how important it was to be collective and unified, and how anger plays a part, but it can't be at the forefront of where we are? Can you speak to our generation now in terms of not so much peaceful protests or any, but what was it like going through that? Coming out of, and I know you wasn't around during slavery, but coming out of a time where we weren't even considered citizens. You remember a time where we couldn't, you had to get off the bus and come in the back door. You couldn't stop. You had to travel with that shoebox with your chicken and your food in it. Speak to that time and then tell us what we can do now so we don't repeat that. We don't repeat, and if we are in that space, how we move forward from it.
Well, I grew up, I was born in that time. And again, the family would tell stories. And I didn't hear this story until I was grown. And I had to ask around, was this true? But what was important during those times was a sense of family. And to me, that's what we have to get back to. A strong sense of family, extended family, the community, the church, the school, even though everything was segregated, but we were together.
We needed each other.
We needed each other, and we helped each other. When my grandmother and grandfather moved to Tennessee, when they moved to Alcoa from McMinnville, they were in like a 3-bedroom house, and yet they took in boarders. Other people from McMinnville came there. I remember a gentleman stayed there. That's what they told me. And again, they helped him get a job. People would send for their kin people or for their friends from the community, because Alcoa stands for the Aluminum Company of America, and that's where they processed aluminum. And at one time, they had the largest plant there in the world, and the aluminum company never closed. So people worked from 2 to 10, 10 to 6, and 6 to 2, and the graveyard shift was from 6 to 2. So that was a job for black people, and so they built that town basically for a lot of black people to come to and work. So they sent for their families. So that was very important during those days to survive, was to be a community, was to go to church. And even though everybody didn't go to church, but they had a reverence, they had a respect. People respected their teachers. They respected the principal. They didn't always get along with the principal, but they respected them. They respected each other. You had to show respect for each other, you know, and that was very important. Now, there were some harsh times during those times, and a lot of times people talk about the KKK, they think of it as being mythical. And my uncle had a lot of property in Lenore City, and there was this dispute where the white man felt that property was his, and so my uncle wouldn't give it up. And so late one night, in the middle of the night, my cousin, I've heard it from different people, different accounts, they could hear just people gathering around, and they looked out the window and they saw the white hoods, and they burned a cross in my aunt's yard. And my aunt's name was Mert. That was her nickname. We all grew up with nicknames, and she screamed and screamed and screamed. She was so terrified. And her husband, my uncle, stood there with his shotgun. He stood there with his shotgun. He says, anybody comes on this porch, I'm going to blast them away.
Right.
Because at a certain point, you have to take a stand. At a certain point, you have to make a decision. You have to protect. And even Martin Luther King talked about this. He believed in peaceful protest, but like he said, you have to defend your family.
Yes.
Right.
If someone tries to attack my family or attack my friends or attack my honor, you know what I'm saying? And the whole idea of peaceful protest, he, you know, had learned that from Gandhi. Gandhi had studied Henry David Thoreau, because in that situation, that was the best solution, was the peaceful protest. But what people forget is all the unsung heroes and sheroes who were murdered, who were killed.
Right.
Who people don't know who did it. They were never brought to justice. So a lot of terrific things happen, and so the question is that going to happen now?
Right.
And what we have to remember on June 17th in 2015, someone went in there and assassinated 9 people in Mother Emanuel AME Church. Just like those 4 girls. Those little girls were bombed in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. So we have to realize that this is a concerted effort of some group, of somebody with an agenda to separate, like Brother David said, to separate the poor whites and all the people of color. Because if you look at the population, yes, we are gaining in terms of population, in terms of the whole world and populations, people of color.
But we're getting comfortable.
Yeah, we're getting very comfortable, and we're becoming not so much naive, but unaware. We are not looking. See, I was raised in a time where you had to observe. I remember my father put me on his shoulders and took me to the end of the block where a terrible crime had been committed. A black person had killed a white cop, and they more or less shut down the black town. They had martial law. They had a curfew. The troops came in and stood on top of the Pritchard lumber yard, and they put out a word, and they said, if we don't find this, you know, they use the N-word, within 24 hours, we're going to find the first we see. We're going to kill him, and we're going to drag him up every black street in the neighborhood, every street in the black neighborhood.
That's the government.
And people were afraid to come out. Afraid to come out the doors. Black people. My father took me out and said, Bill, that's what they called my mother, I'm taking Linda for a walk. He took me out there, walked me to the end of the block, put me on his shoulders for me to bear witness to the army, the trucks, and I mean all this military. I was stunned. I was stunned.
Right.
Now, lo and behold, the man was found. He was found in a little white wooden Black Baptist church there on the corner of between my street and the next street. He was there because in those days the doors of the church were always open. Nowadays the churches are locked. The bricks, the gates are locked. But that was another thing too. The doors of the church were always open. People could come in there and say they were in need of this and need of that. People in my town did not go hungry because everybody got together to feed people. They did not go without clothes.
Right.
And everybody was together. And everybody lived in the same area. You didn't have the teachers or a doctor living way up there and all other type of thing. And see, I remember when I lived in D.C., when I was at Howard, everybody came together. You could go to a party or whatever you want to call it, a get together, and you might see a quote unquote famous basketball player there, or a congressman there, and everybody mingled. Now it's gotten to the point that you don't even see a quote unquote celebrity. And my daughter, she told me when she was acting in this movie, she had a bit part, and they were told that you are not to look at Bruce Willis or Samuel L. Jackson. You're not to look at them. You're not to talk to them. You're not to think about them. If you go up to them, you're going to be fired. Right, you're going to be fired immediately. You're out the door. So there is no contact. There was a time where the Negro League they came to our town and played. See, here again, unfortunately, when we didn't really integrate, we desegregated, and we lost a lot of things because we were so busy trying to fight. Well, there was a lot to fight for, but we didn't realize we had to fight for so much more.
Right.
And they're now behind what's going on in this situation. A friend told me, because I get reports from everywhere, that this man has put a sign in his restaurant saying white folks only. And he said, yes, he can do it because number 45 is the president. So you have a lot of things going on. There are towns in my state that you don't go to. When I was a kid, we knew not to go to Ducktown. We knew to be careful in Sparta. See, you had to be aware, and you have to be aware now. And that's just happened, I think, to some of the younger generation and some of the older people now who live through this and want to forget it. Right. But we have to be aware of what is going on. Right. Because a lot is going on. And when people say they don't know anything about racism, there is no racism. Look at how the difference in how Florida and Texas was treated as opposed to how Puerto Rico was treated and the Virgin Islands. Right. That's the perfect example of racism and thinking of people being on another level. And not only that, treating the people on the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, even though they're Americans, but treating the area as if it's still a colony. Still a colony.
In addition to.
Yeah, and that's the feeling I get of how some people want to treat black people. Right. When they talk about going back and what's going to happen. No, we're not going back to those times. I don't care whether a person has a job or doesn't have a job. That person is still a human being and still can contribute to the community or to society. And another thing about my community, everybody was proud of whatever job they had, because most of the black men, most of them had jobs as janitors. My grandfather was a janitor at the pot room, which was the big one, which was the South Plant. My grandfather wore a 3-piece suit to work every day. With his pocket watch, his two-tone shoes, his white hat. He would be strolling. We didn't even know this because when I would see him, he would have on overalls, and my mother happened to see him. We happened to see him. We was coming from work, and she said, "Mr. Murphy, this is what you wear to work?" And he said, "Yes, I do." He said, "I go dressed to kill every day to work." So no matter what you had, whatever job you had, because it was so hard to get a job. Yeah, I remember my uncle was a shoe shine boy. Well, from that money of shining shoes, he was able to buy a home. He was able to have property. So again, you were able to do a lot with quote unquote the little you had, because you worked together. Right. And that's what our stories teach us, our fables. Right. That's what's important about black storytelling, is showing about community, showing about bullying. I mean, you can find a black story about any type of topic there is. Right.
Right. I want to. Of course, time goes away from us because the show is nearing to the end, and I'm gonna ask you. I want you to come back once a month and keep talking to us because a lot of us don't get it. And I'll ask you the last question of the day. Go ahead.
I just wanted to interject on what she was saying, as far as as far as the family members. What they went through in growing up, because I have history in my family as well, as far as having slaves in my family. And I remember my great grandfather, Papa Anda, he actually worked for the man, and he was like a house whatever he did. But in the turn, when he said his master during that time, he passed away, and he actually left him all the land to the house and the house itself. And that the people were so mad that they killed my great grandfather on the court step. They hit him in the head with an axe, and the guy never served no time for it.
That's true.
So it's like it's crazy that our families go through that, and it's like the history behind it and just all of that. And so
that's a powerful story. That story needs to be told. I want to talk to you more about that story, because these are the powerful stories that has happened to us and within our family. And they need to come out, because again, everything is controlled by the corporation, the big mainstream media. They control the narrative, and that's what's important. That's what storytelling is about, controlling the narrative.
And we're on a more level playing field now in terms of creating that narrative and telling the truth of that narrative. I want to lastly ask both of you the question that we normally ask all of our guests: what advice would you give to your 17-year-old self?
The 17-year-old self? I'll let David handle.
There's a lot of things I could have told my 17-year-old self. I think everything I went through at 17 was necessary, so I won't tell him to avoid anything. I'll just say, stay true to yourself. Everything will work out as it should. Because I can remember when I was 17 and all those things that I thought were important, and ultimately they weren't. I can think about those things that maybe I took for granted that became the foundation of who I was. So yeah, there's nothing I would have told myself to avoid, because all those things were lessons that needed to be learned for me to be who I am today, not just as an activist and all the things that I do for the elevation of my people, but for me personally. I needed those harsh lessons. I needed those instances of pain and confusion and all the other emotions that go into life itself to have the perspective that I do now. So no avoiding that, but just again, stay true to self, and I know that it has guided me to where I am today. That's what makes this life's work so worthwhile. I mean, I feel glad and blessed to know that I know why I'm here. I'm not going to spend my life trying to figure out, well, why am I here? What am I doing? No, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, and the question is, how long do I have to do it? Hopefully many years, or not. Either I'm done or somebody else picks up the mantle for me. But yeah, that's what I would tell myself. So just stay true to self.
Mama Linda?
Well, I think I would have told my 17-year-old self to, I wish I had written down more. Wish I had remembered more. Wish I had remembered all those stories Granddaddy Murphy told me. A lot of times I wasn't paying attention. I wanted to watch television. I wanted to talk on the phone to the boys. So I didn't listen. Yep, Mama Linda. So I wasn't listening like I should have. But interestingly, you would say 17, because at 17, I, along with a couple more of my classmates, were chosen to go out to the black neighborhood and knock on each door and to encourage them to vote. And that was a powerful experience for me, and that's what I really learned about the power of storytelling. And the stories I heard, I wish I had written all these stories down. Some people were like in their 90s. They had never voted before. I remember this lady said, and she ain't gonna vote. She ain't gonna vote. I remember one person said, they killed Kennedy, so what's the point? And the stories of how some had come from Alabama, Mississippi, and how they had been afraid to vote because they had been mistreated, having to pay a tax to vote, having to count marbles in a jar, just terrible things that happened to them, and so...
And trying to register to vote.
Yeah, trying to register to vote. So that was really an eye-opener for me. And even to this day, a lot of the black people in my hometown don't do a lot of voting. Some of them vote, but a lot of them don't vote. And to me, that's something that we really have to stress now, because that's what's happening too. Trying to oppress the vote. Trying to oppress the vote. And we have to demand recounts and demand answers and do recalls. Now, we know something happened with this last election, but we just sat by and didn't say anything. And that's why groups do have to come together, because I understand when you come by yourself, you're afraid. You can lose your job. You can use this. You can lose so much. You can even lose your life. And we have to have jobs. We have to have some type of income coming in, because again, back in the day, as we used to say, back in the 60s and whatever, when I was in college, I never had any money. My mother would send me a line that was going in 2 seconds. I never had any money. I was never worrying about where I was going to eat next, or there was always somebody to help to share with you, or you would share with them, and this type of thing. You know, now we have become so dependent, truly dependent on money, which is really becoming a major problem, because being from a small city, I mean a small town, really rural town, where people used to can and people used to grow. I remember my father used to grow all kinds of vegetables and stuff, and my grandfather was a sharecropper too. But again, I remember, again, at 17, that's when I started realizing how important it was to remember the story. And he told me, well, several stories how he got to Alabama, but one story is the fact that the white man in charge, or master in charge, said, now you would take orders from my son. And the son was much younger than he was, and the son rode around in a horse, giving my grandfather, who was about 6'5", orders. And my grandfather got tired. He was going to take orders from this kid, and one day he knocked him off his horse. Well, he had to get out of town after that, you know. So here again, there are stories from our childhood, in our background, where we as a people had to take a stand in a number of ways, through peaceful means and through means that weren't so peaceful, because it was a matter of life and death. And as we know, this country was founded on revolution. This country itself, found on revolution and on the enslavement of our ancestors. And when people say, my family didn't have nothing to do with enslaving people, my people weren't a part of slavery, blah, blah, blah. Everybody in this country has benefited, including all of us sitting here. Everyone has benefited off the backs of our ancestors. This country wouldn't be what it is. I don't care whether you came over here yesterday, whether you come over here tomorrow. Anybody who's on this soil has benefited off the back of our ancestors.
Well, there's nothing else to say. There's much more I want to say, but there's nothing else we should be able to say today. Thank you, Mama Linda and Brother David, for joining us today on the Artist Exchange. And the door is always open. If you come up here, somebody here, they just gonna move over, and we're gonna talk to Mama Linda and Brother David. But this has been another installment of the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Tune in today at 5 for the Charm City Direct Radio Show. I'll be going up to Tamika Nicole's, the new Club International, for her networking event right after the show. And then next Friday we'll be here with Brother Du Marseille. He's a musician, and we'll be talking more about him. And then don't forget, next Saturday we'll be at Morgan State University, live broadcasting from the African American Authors and Empowerment Expo in the Student Center. So definitely come out, join us, jump on the mic, tell us about your business and who you are. Meet plenty of authors and take part in workshops. If you want to be an author, you want to publish or register your book, they show you how to do it. So this has been the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Thank you again for coming, to Mama Linda and Brother David. Thank you, sir. And this has been the Artist Exchange. Peace out.
Enjoy your weekend.
Be blessed.
Ladies, are you in need of the best quality hair extensions, a cute outfit, or that perfect pair